Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm chatting with Michelle Dececco from Lithium Chile. In today's interview, we discuss how the Canadian government has blocked investment from China into Canadian listed issuers who have assets that aren't even in Canada, and the frustration that that has meant for the mining community. We also get into Lithium Chile, who is in the process of doing a mammoth transaction to sell their Arizaro project, what that's going to look like for shareholders with a potential dividend or whatever that might end up looking like for shareholders, what assets the company's going to focus on moving forward, and ultimately what that new strategy is going to look like. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Michelle, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Steve. It's been a while. I'm happy to catch up.
So there's a lot going on in the world right now. The big talk seems to be talk of tariffs. We've got a new administration in the US, and I'm not trying to get too political here. A lot of stuff happening in Canada in terms of we don't really know what's happening, but they're preparing certain actions. I guess if certain things happen, there's some rumors that there's going to be huge stimulus packages implemented if the Donald Trump administration moves forward with tariffs. I'm curious, what's going through your head right now as somebody who works in capital markets, trying to just sort of assess what's happening in the world, especially for somebody who works for a Canadian listed lithium company?
Well, it's funny, Steve, because our properties are in Chile and Argentina, but our company is Canadian. And so I often get asked which government's been the most difficult to deal with. And I have to be honest, the Canadian government doesn't make it easy to do business. And I say that with all due respect, but I'll be curious to see how everything plays out. And I think it's going to be a few months before we see really the decisions being made around tariffs and where we end up.
And I think and I got to say this because we talk to a lot of companies, right? And many of them, when they come on here, they don't want to talk about politics. But we think about what the Liberal government has put you guys in particular through, right? You guys
Mm-hmm.
are a Canadian listed company that has an asset that's not in Canada. Well, you have multiple assets, so some in
Right.
Chile, but let's not sugarcoat it. The prize here is in Argentina, and the Canadian government saying to you guys, "Nope, you guys can't take any money from China." Mind you, our pension funds invest a ton of money in China. They created an environmental slush fund that invested in a whole bunch of Chinese green tech companies with Canadian dollars. But if China wants to put money into a company that's not even really in Canada, it's listed on a Canadian exchange. I know that the headquarters is in Canada, but
Right.
let's not kid ourselves. The core assets here are in another country. The Liberal government says no, 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 no.
Well,
And
Steve,
that
can you
and
imagine? I mean, it's just so short sighted and so frustrating for exactly the reason you said. I mean, we don't have any Canadian assets. And listen, I'm the first one to say that this policy is set up to protect Canadian critical minerals. But that's Canadian critical minerals. We don't have Canadian critical minerals. And so it's short sighted for so many reasons. And that, like you just said, now Canada is dictating who can own Argentina assets or who can own Chilean assets. It's absolutely short sighted. And listen, anytime shareholders of ours, Canadian shareholders, do well in the stock, they're going to have capital gains. And where's that tax going to go? And the other thing, I mean, I could go on and on. It's so frustrating, but I said to the government as well when we were dealing with this, is it's fine for them to have this policy. It's fine for them to try to secure critical minerals. But in their attempt to do so, at no time did they offer to buy them, which would mean securing them, right? So they just said the Chinese couldn't. So, I mean, I've been pretty vocal about it, and it's because I love our mining community, and I think that it's the backbone of Canada. And I've seen many of my contemporaries start to make the move to be somewhere else, to domicile somewhere else, and that's sad.
and I assume that one of the names you're pointing at right now, Solaris Resources, who's
Right.
basically just they fired their whole board for the strangest reason we've never seen. Normally, when a board gets fired or it drops out, it's because there's this unbelievable friction within the company. There's one party coming in to take over another party, or there's fighting. But no, no, no. This is just a case of we are just going to give the middle finger to the Canadian government and say, you know what? There could be jobs in Canada on the capital market side. This could be good for the exchanges to collect fees, and everybody who works in the banking sector to be able to go and work on these projects and help raise money for them. But instead, screw you guys. We are leaving Canada. You did this, Mr. Trudeau.
Right. And part of that, and part of domiciling or redomiciling, Steve, is that if to effectively do it, you also have to terminate the minds and management within the company. So they can't be Canadian either. And so that would be the reason for getting rid of the board. And it's also costly. Let me tell you, when we were looking at redomiciling, the tax implication on leaving, and if you're a successful company, it costs you millions and millions. And so unless you're adding that price tag to a potential deal you have, it's a tough go. So for companies to say, to heck with it, I'm going to do it anyways, shows how horrible the government's been to these mining companies.
Yeah, and I encourage you to keep going out there and being vocal about it, because this is something that I think Canadians need to hear about. This is not to me. This is something that is in the public interest to hear about how we have a capital market sector, and I understand that there's a lot of people out there who they hear these things and they just think mining's dirty. Who cares anyways? And oh, it's just the rich people in Canada just trying to get richer. And these are the thoughts that go through a lot of people's heads. But what they don't
Right.
realize is that this is capital, this is money that means jobs, that means money for the overall economy that helps everybody. And I think it is in the public interest for people to hear about this.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll move on here. Let's get into Lithium Chile. Uh, we've had you on before, but there's going to be people who are watching this interview and they don't know anything about Lithium Chile. So I hate to just dive right in and start talking about the company. First off, let's just give a high level overview of the company and ultimately what you guys recently announced that's sort of transforming what the company looks like.
Okay. Well, and this is my favorite topic. Lithium Chile, despite the name Lithium Chile, our key asset and flagship property is in Argentina. Earlier in 2024, we announced that on this property, we completed a pre-feasibility study with an NPV of $3.8 billion US. So we are so proud that we were able to really transform this barren ground to such a significant asset. It's brine lithium. And so for those thinking, what you've heard, as you mentioned, that this is, environmentally unfriendly and destructive, this brine drilling is the same as oil and gas. You're simply putting a diamond drill or rotary rig into the ground and looking for lithium brine that then comes up. So it's not digging these giant crates in the ground. So once we announced that, we also had some strategic movement within the company that we're planning to do, because we knew that we had taken this asset and we built up the value. We're explorers and developers, we're not producers. And so it was always our intention that once we really valued this property as much as we could, that we would sell it and pay back our shareholders. And so that was the announcement that we made in December, that we've signed a binding LOI for 180 million US for this one property. And so what's exciting about that is that we still have 11 other properties in our company. And once this acquisition is complete, we're going to be one of very few companies that actually is cashed up and able to advance these projects. And so, Steve, we've said it since the beginning that upon completing this acquisition, the shareholders would get money back. We were reviewing some of the tax implications of doing a special dividend, and I'm happy to say that we've found an alternative route that's beneficial to the shareholders now, and will also consequently leave Charge Lithium, which will be the new name of the company, in a better spot as well. So we're excited.
So do you have any idea of when the transaction's set to close at this point?
Well, so right now, the company prior to us signing the binding LOI, they had already done all the technical due diligence. So they've been out to site a few times and done all their testing and whatnot. So now we're on the legal and financial due diligence. And when we spoke to them last week, they indicated that that's being wrapped up. And so the next stage is the completion of the definitive agreement. And that's really based around what we agreed to in the LOI. So it shouldn't be too complicated. But it's been exciting. I mean, this part's kind of the nitty gritty, Steve. It's not my favorite part of doing a deal, but we got to get it done. So I would say in the next few weeks, we'll be able to update our shareholders with the date of the definitive agreement.
You don't have to comment on this, but I got to ask anyways. Have there been any other parties that have sort of stepped up and reached out to you guys after the announcement of the LOI?
Well, so I'll be careful here, Steve. The answer is yes. We were in exclusivity with this party that we signed the LOI, but I'm an officer of the company. And if there's an offer that comes in that's superior to the one we have, we would have to bring it to the board of directors and our shareholders.
Okay, fair enough. So, what can you tell us about the the spinouts, and why should we be excited as shareholders?
Well, okay. So as a shareholder, you would have received an existing shareholder. We determined last year that we had 5 gold, silver, copper properties in Chile that were really getting no value in the share price. I mean, not even our flagship property was being reflected in the share price. So we worked on spinning those properties out, which we've done successfully. Um, we have a few conditions left to go public. I think that we can do it by the end of February. I'm in London right now, just finalizing a private placement so that we've got capital for the first year exploration efforts. But the initial drill results that we got in on our Las Gorillas property, it's a gold property in Chile, showed significant gold as well as some rare earths. And so we are so excited. Really, these shares are at no cost to the shareholders. So when you think about it, as a Lithium Chile shareholder, you got free shares in this gold company that's about to go public. You're going to get a buyback on your shares, and then you're going to retain those shares in a company that still has 11 amazing lithium properties in Chile within a company that's cashed up to advance them. Like this is all great news.
So, I got to ask you about the lithium market, because you're obviously talking to companies or parties that are interested in lithium. You're talking to investors. You're in the thick of it. Lithium, obviously, a few years ago went on this huge run. It's come back, and then it effectively crashed. I think that that's fair to say.
Mhm.
And of recent, it's kind of come back a bit. What's your read right now on the lithium market? If we are an investor in on the equity side of a lithium company, why should we be excited about the the lithium market and where it's heading?
Well, Steve, I've said it before. Every country in the world is committed to zero emissions. The UK recently they changed their timeline. They want to be 2030. That's like just around the corner. So lithium EVs, they're not going anywhere. So I think with lithium, it's been a tough ride. There's no futures. There's not a lot of historical. So this is a commodity that's kind of been all over the place. In fact, down 80% from its high. Um, but I'll give you something to think about. That when we were previously had the asset up for sale, and we were looking at some different uh, offers, the and the price was up 80% in lithium. What we've received now is 180 million US is very similar to what we were receiving when lithium price was up 80%. And so really the value, and I think what people are looking at is the resource itself, the quality of the resource. And we're not getting the lithium out of the ground right now at this price, anyways. And so people are looking long term, right? You still have to build a plant, you got to take it into production. So I don't think the price of lithium for a company like Lithium Chile matters right now. It's being good explorers and building a good, strong resource with good grades.
So, Michelle, last question for you here. If I am an investor in the company, and or I'm watching you guys and I'm thinking, okay, you guys are cashed up. I'm expecting um I'm expecting a spin out. You still got a whole portfolio of lithium projects that mean that this company is not just a shell. That's there. You guys have something to move forward with here. What does 2025 look like? What are those catalyst milestones, the timelines? What am I watching out for?
Well, so as soon as this asset, the Azario project, is sold, obviously will be cashed up. So we will offer our shareholders a buyback, and so that it will be at a premium to market. So I mean, we're trading far under value what shareholders are going to get in return. But once we end up, the company is going to be called Charge Lithium, and so we'll lose the Lithium Chile name, but it will still be the same company. So it's going to be able to advance projects. And the one that I'm really excited about, Steve, is Kipasa. It was always kind of like our flagship property in Chile, one of the original ones that we were really excited about. What's exciting is historical grades of over 1,400 milligrams per liter. I believe that this property has the potential of being bigger than our Arizaro project. And it was one of 6 projects in all of Chile that were granted COLs from the mining minister to proceed with lithium exploitation. So this is huge. Right, having that permission from the ministry increases the value of this project, but we've always wanted to get our hands on it, and now we can. So I think that we'll be able to see results in 2025 on that solar. We've also just finalized a joint venture. As you know, we announced last year that Aramet has become a partner of ours. Aramet's this amazing European company, and we've got 4 projects with them. And so we've just finalized the Yamara one, so we can start drilling on that. So that will be some more results coming out. Upon the completion of the acquisition, we're left with Block 4. So we still have a project in Argentina that we know has potential based on our original asset. It's only 18 kilometers from there. And we've got a partner that is the Salta, provincial mining. So they're 11% on that project. So we've got some good things happening, and I just can't wait to get everything moving.
All right, well, Michelle, thanks very much for hopping on here. I think that there's a lot of meat on the bone here for investors that are looking for limited downside with some pretty big upside. So I appreciate you hopping on here, and I also appreciate all the stuff you're doing, going out there and talking about what's happened to the Canadian mining capital markets, and that's basically just been a direct result of our government implementing policies that I find objectively head scratching and makes me wonder what's really happening behind the scenes. So I appreciate that you're out there spreading that message, and let's continue to do this in the future. And I wish you a happy 2025.
Thank you, Steve. I have to say that I want to thank our shareholders. They've hung in there with us for this crazy ride. Um, our stock last year was number 3 for performance and retaining its value despite commodity prices. So that's a direct result of having amazing shareholders that support us. So thank you, Steve. You're a shareholder, and I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching, everyone.